This video is going to show how to create region-based rules for rigid flex designs in OrCAD X Presto. Different stack-ups, materials, and manufacturing capabilities for rigid and flex sections of the design often require different design rules, and keeping track of this manually can increase the likelihood of errors. OrCAD X Presto includes the ability to quickly and easily generate region-based rules for rigid flex designs, automatically applying the required rules in rigid and flex areas on the board. Start by opening the provided design in OrCAD X Presto. Before a constraint set can be assigned to any region on the board, a constraint region rule set must be created. Select Tools, Constraint Manager from the menu to open the Constraint Manager window. Here you can define and assign constraint sets in the electrical, physical, spacing, and same net spacing domains. Select the physical domain from the worksheet selector. Select the Physical Constraint Set All Layers worksheet to define a constraint set. A table of constraint sets used in the design is shown. Right-click the default constraint set and select Create Physical C-Set. Enter a name for this C-set, for example, Flex Wide. Click OK to create a new C-set. The new C-set is added to the table. Here you can define physical constraints such as line width, maximum neck length, and more. For this example, we will change the minimum line width. Next, we need to create a region-based rule set to apply to the rigid flex regions. Select the Region All Layers worksheet. Right-click in the table and select Create Region. Enter a name for the region, for example, Flex Wide, and click OK. To assign a constraint set, double-click the cell for Referenced Physical C-Set. Select the constraint set we created earlier from the drop-down to assign the constraint set to the region. The rules defined in the constraint set are assigned and added to the table. With the constraint set and region defined, close the Constraint Manager. We now need to assign the region to a zone on the board to have any effect. Let's assign it the Display Flex zone. Select the zone on the PCB canvas. The Properties panel populates with shape and zone properties. Choose the created Flex Wide region from the Constraint Region drop-down. The Flex Wide constraint set is applied to the rigid flex zone. Let's verify that the constraints took effect inside the constraint region by routing a trace. Select the Add Connect mode from the toolbar. On the main controller section of the board, select the pin for net A2 on the top IC to start routing. Route to the edge of the rigid flex. The trace cannot be routed on the rigid flex itself because the top subclass does not exist in the rigid flex zones. Instead, double-click to create a via and select Flex 1 in the Add Via window. The via is created and the layer changes to Flex 1. Now hover your cursor over the rigid flex zone. The trace thins inside the zone to match the region constraint. To make routing through the curved zone a bit cleaner, select Arc for the trace type in the Add Connect widget. Click to route the trace to the other side of the flex zone. When you leave the zone, the trace returns to its original thickness. Double-click again to create another via and select Top from the Create Via window. Set the trace type to Line to return to the normal sharp angle mode. Route the trace to its termination as indicated by the rat's nest line. As per our region rule, the trace is 7 mils wide in the flex zone and 10 mils wide outside of it. Quickly create region-based rules for rigid flex designs to adhere to the different requirements for flex and rigid sections of the PCB with OrCAD X Presto. For more tutorials, visit us at resources.ema-eva.com and don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.